Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and compare the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the iPhone 8 Plus and see which specific phone is the better one for you. Now, I will definitely tell you the iPhone 14 Pro Max is the better phone in every single area, but maybe you want to wait for the 15 Pro Max, who knows? Well, either way, links will be down in the description for some iPhones I would recommend this year. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, interestingly enough, they're roughly around the same size, although, the 14 Pro Max is a heavier, thicker phone. On the front of the iPhone 8 Plus, we had a Retina IPS panel on it. It was 1080p. It wasn't a bad resolution, like it was a fairly high resolution for the most part, but it wasn't an OLED display. This was one of the last IPS iPhones we had for a while until Apple made the, iPhone SE 2020. And this was the last Plus model that we had until the iPhone 14s. With this one, this was still a really big phone. This is still one of the biggest Retina IPS panels on an iPhone. And, it's still strange. 2017, this phone is still the lowest supported iPhone right now on iOS 16, but it still lives on, which is really interesting. Now, on the 14 Pro Max, we have a much different design. We have a 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. So it's a much bigger panel, as you guys can probably tell. Now, we do have the lack of bezel around it, but we do have a little bit of a dynamic island display. It's kind of cool, I guess, but also it's like still kind of protruding into the display. And otherwise, the display on the iPhone 14 Pro Max is much better. You also have Pro Motion at 120 Hz on this display as well, which makes everything look so much smoother when you're scrolling through. So I'll definitely tell you, the 14 Pro Max on the front looks so much better. In terms of thinness and thickness, this may be one of the advantages for something like the iPhone 14 or the iPhone 8 Plus for the most part. It is a much thinner phone. You can kind of tell for yourself. If you're trying to get a phone that's like super thin and super like light to kind of carry around, the 14 Pro Max is now one of those phones. However, you can kind of tell that from the top and from the bottom, the iPhone 8 Plus is like almost the exact same size. It's just a little bit thinner than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, you're also missing the SIM card tray on the 14 Pro Max as well. I wish it had it. Unfortunately, it doesn't. The 8 Plus does have it though, so keep that in mind. And on the back, we have two different stylings of backs. So with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, we have a triple camera setup, wide, ultra-wide, and telephoto lens with a LiDAR sensor. The iPhone 8 Plus only a wide and telephoto lens. Now we have glass backs on both, but the iPhone 8 Plus had the standard glass back, which is more in line with something like the iPhone 10s, the iPhone 4s, those kinds of iPhones. The iPhone 14 Pro Max has the frosted glass back, which is a new modern, it's kind of like the more recent way of building a back on these things, and it makes the phone feel that much more premium. I'm a massive fan of frosted glass backs, and they look and they feel so much better for sure. Now we have wireless charging on the back of both these phones. We do have the MagSafe capability on the back of the 14 Pro Max, which is nice. We have emergency SOS satellite mode, and we also have crash detection on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And we also have things like 5G support on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, as well as dual eSIM technology, where the iPhone 8 Plus only had single, physical SIM. And that kind of covers up the outside for the most part. Now, in terms of the software and the longevity of both these phones, as I mentioned earlier in this video, the iPhone 8 Plus is kind of on its last leg. It's the lowest supported iPhone right now on iOS 16. It's tough to tell how much longer this phone is going to last. If I had to guess, I don't think this phone is going to last that much longer, based on what Apple's kind of been doing recently. And I wouldn't be surprised if iOS 16 was the last version of software available on this phone. Again, I hope that isn't the case, but we really don't have too much speculation going on here. But as of right now, the 14 Pro Max is probably going to be one of the longest lasting iPhones when it comes down to it. So if you want an iPhone that's going to last the longest amount of time, this is definitely going to be the one for you for sure. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. Now let's go into a speed comparison between both these phones. The iPhone 8 Plus has that Apple A11 Bionic chip inside of it with 3 gigabytes of RAM. Where the iPhone 14 Pro Max has that Apple A16 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigs of RAM. So let's go and see which one's the faster one between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, as you guys can tell. So let's get into it. Phone calls 3, 2, 1. And definitely the iPhone 8 Plus was slightly slower there. Music 3, 2, 1. And this is the other thing to keep in mind is with the app opening speeds, you're definitely going to be getting it faster on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, especially when you're maneuvering around the whole entire UI. It is a much more slow experience on the iPhone 14 on the iPhone 8 Plus because it is a non-gesture based design. Now I even messed that one up there, but I'm pretty sure we're still gonna. So I guess this one's a little bit different. We were on two different panels. Let's go and hop out of here. Let's go and do Apple TV. 3, 2, 1. Okay. For some reason, I don't know why the internet's not working on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, even though I already connected to it like 3 different times. So let's go hop out of here. Let's do camera. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now I would take a photo, but this one is already on that. So let's go and take a 3, 2, 1. Let's go and open up that photo. Okay, I guess I didn't click on this one. Let's go and hop out of this one. Let's go and get into clock. 3, 2, 1. Still a little bit of a delay on pretty much every single application I've opened up on the iPhone, 8 Plus. Let's go and load up Genshin Impact. 3, 2, 1. Now this is a massive game, and I would be curious to see which one is going to be the faster one. But as I mentioned, with games like this, they have a lot of graphics you can kind of tailor around to. So even if a game is super like just not working that well in terms of graphics, you can just go ahead and just tailor the graphics down a little bit, and you'll get a better experience there. But either way, you're going to have a lot more capability, a lot more power from a phone like the iPhone 14 Pro Max than the iPhone 8 Plus, without a doubt for sure. Let's go Facebook. 3, 2, 1. Okay, definitely that one covers it up there. Stack. 3, 2, 1. And the 14 Pro Max again is the faster one. Hopping out of here, let's go and do Temple Run 2. 3, 2, 1. And again, the 14 Pro Max is definitely going to be the faster one here yet again. And the iPhone 8 Plus, a little bit behind. But again, this is where you're going to be seeing it. I mean, the gesture, the battery just died, so I had to replace it. But this is where you're going to be seeing the bigger differences, is going through and checking out the gestures and checking out everything like that. You're definitely going to be getting a faster experience, in my opinion, on the iPhone 14 Pro Max for sure than the iPhone 8 Plus. And this was just from like a basic test as well. Now, in terms of the camera comparison on the back, as I mentioned before, you're going to be getting a much better camera setup on the iPhone 14 Pro Max than on the iPhone 8 Plus. On the back of the 8 Plus, we had a wide and a telephoto lens. With the 14 Pro Max, we had a wide, ultra-wide, and telephoto lens. Now we can do 4K at 60 on the back. We can only do 1080p on the front of the iPhone 8 Plus, or we can do 4K at 60 on the front of the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is a pretty big advantage. Now the iPhone 8 Plus camera, I think back in 2017, it wasn't that bad. But cameras have evolved so much now, and we have so much more capability nowadays too. I mean, with this type of camera, I mean, it's not bad. You have, still I think you have 10x zoom, which is great, but you don't get 0.5x zoom, and you only get like portrait mode and standard video mode here too. So there's really not like that much craziness going on with these type of cameras. Like, you're kind of limited when it kind of comes down to it, if I'm being honest. With the 14 Pro Max, on the other hand, this is one of the best cameras you can buy nowadays. This is a very, very solid camera that has so much capability in it for sure. Now, in my opinion, this camera, first of all, you have that 0.5x zoom, which I talked about before, is awesome. And you also have 15x zoom as well. So you have like a little bit more zoom than even the iPhone 8 Plus. You have portrait mode, but you also have this new action mode within the camera. And you also have cinematic mode as well, which those things in and of itself are amazing. And personally, I like having that type of capability because it just sets yourself up to be that much better in terms of the performance segment. So personally, I truly do believe this type of phone is going to be that much better than the iPhone 8 Plus in the camera department, but I also think this is going to be the better phone in pretty much every single area for sure. If you're trying to get a phone that's going to be lasting you the longest amount of time, well, this is the one that makes the most amount of sense. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is a really good phone, and the only thing that's even kind of maybe not the best thing about this phone is the price tag. At $1,099, that is a massive price tag to pay for a phone. And if you don't feel like paying for it, if you think that's too expensive, you still have a lot of phones in between these two. You have phones like the iPhone 13 Pro Max that's cheaper than this thing. You have phones like the iPhone 12 Pro Max, 11 Pro Max. You have a lot of phones in between here that you don't really have to go for the 14 Pro Max. You can just go from an 8 Plus to like a 12 Pro Max and still get a really good upgrade for sure. So in terms of that, that's kind of covers it up. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.